Hey everyone, welcome to this commentary on Extra Credits Season 4, Episode 15, Spectrum Crunch. Basically, my whole point of making this video is to debunk the bullshit that this guy spewed the entire time. Me being a tech expert, let me show you where this guy was wrong and explain why it's complete bullshit that came out of this guy's mouth. So, join me on this and definitely comment, rate, and subscribe towards the end.
Hey people, so today's episode is kind of an odd one. It's about a problem we didn't even know existed until James ran headlong into it on a consulting gig. In some ways it's not that exciting a topic, but in other ways it's really strange and kind of fascinating, not to mention extremely important to gaming. So what's the problem?
Well, I definitely need to hear this, guys. It's important to gaming.
I don't know how to put this, but we're running out of bandwidth in the air. I know that...
Running out of bandwidth in the air. That's interesting. We're running out of bandwidth in the air, yet you post a picture of a wired cable. Okay, let's see where else this is going.
just sounds bizarre, but it's absolutely true. Soon there won't be enough bandwidth available in the air around us to support all of our bandwidth needs.
Well, what? Again? You're comparing bandwidth spectrum in the air to home-based internet. Okay, I gotta see where else this takes me.
Like me, I'm sure many of you are wondering, wait, how is that possible? How do you run out of capacity to transmit data over the air? Well, as you probably know,
Okay, another bullshit chart. How do you run out of capacity when everything is hardwired? I'm still trying to understand where this guy's coming from.
data transfer over the airwaves comes in the form of radiation. Everything from the radio you hear
Over the airways, I'm trying to understand this. Are you talking about cell phone data, or are you talking about home internet data?
on your car stereo to the data you transfer to browse the web on your cell phone. And, well, there's only a limited band of wavelengths that we can use effectively to transfer information, and that band can't be infinitely subdivided because of destructive interference. Now, this used to not be an issue. No one really even thought about the total amount of band space in the air, but over the last few years, something happened. Smartphones exploded in popularity, and we all started sucking down a lot more bandwidth. And now that we've got tablets and a growing desire for high-def media, larger games...
What? What the fuck do these two examples have to do with cell phone data? These are hardwired devices.
games and streaming content,
Yet another example of hardwired data.
our bandwidth use is growing exponentially.
Well, look at this chart. One actually intelligent chart. Residential and wireless. Let me break it down to you guys quickly before this guy spews even more bullshit. Residential data and wireless are two different things. Obviously on this chart, as you can see, they're different categories. Residential data is completely transmitted through hardwired cables, whether it be fiber lines or coaxial cables, or even copper lines from telephone data. Wireless data is completely transmitted. Wireless. We're not counting Wi-Fi, guys. We're counting entirely using 3G, 4G, LTE, WiMAX, using GSM, CDMA. These are technologies that are wireless. These do not have any impact on your home internet connection, unless you subscribe to one of those LTE at home connections where I don't know why you would want to. Or unless you have satellite data, which also runs on a completely different spectrum and a completely different viewpoint.
Lay some stats on you. The FCC says that the average smartphone uses 24 times the spectrum of an old-style cell phone, and that the average iPad
Which is bullshit.
uses a mind-blowing 122 times as much spectrum.
Okay. Bandwidth and spectrum are kind of two different things here. They're not one in the same. In reality, today's cell phones use less spectrum than the older style phones. We now run entirely on a digital, way of transmitting data. Back in the day, with that big-ass cell phone that you saw before, that was entirely analog, which was actually not using its particular spectrum to the fullest. It was actually wasting it, a lot of it. Today's cell phones actually use far less. The problem is you have millions upon millions of cell phones, whereas back then you didn't really have that many. So how can you say one single fucking iPad uses 122 times what the old style cell phone? In reality, it doesn't even use that much.
AT&T says that their
AT&T. Let's listen to them, because they're experts when they don't even know the common term of network management.
network traffic has risen 20,000% since 2007.
Okay, well, you give me another fucking chart with AT&T Wi-Fi? What the fuck does Wi-Fi have to do with cellular data? It's two separate things. Unless they're running these wireless Wi-Fi devices off of a cellular data connection, it's a non-issue. There's no, you can't say it's the same thing.
20,000%. And according to Cisco, cellular data usage is still more than doubling every year. According to the FCC, we are going to straight up run out of spectrum before 2014. And that's not even accounting for new technologies like the Google Glasses. It's really hard to imagine, but it's true. After decades of growing
I just cannot believe this chart too.
access to the internet, faster speeds, and more bandwidth, and all the new technologies that come with that, a tech boom that has spanned many of our entire lives, we're about to run into a pretty sturdy ceiling on this thing.
No, we're not.
You remember how every cell phone company used to offer unlimited internet? But now it's hard to even renew such a plan, much less
Because they realize they can nickel and dime it.
find one if you're trying to switch carriers. That's because of
Sprint offers it.
this spectrum crunch. Carriers literally can't provide us all bandwidth at the rate we want to consume it, so they're driving
Actually, they can.
up prices in order to try and slow down our internet consumption on these devices. And that's a pretty big problem when you
Meanwhile, giving us internet speeds very similar to your home internet connection. LTE, Verizon.
think about it. I mean, think of how much the world has been improved by our increased access to information. Penalizing people for using the internet, chasing people away from what may be the greatest innovation of our age, stifles technology, creativity, and learning. That's the last thing we want to see happen. That can't be our
Unless you're running your entire life off of a fucking cell phone, none of this matters.
solution. It's like solving a paper shortage by discouraging people from reading books.
That's not a fair comparison.
But this is also a huge problem for anybody who loves games.
Really? Oh, I gotta definitely hear this. This is a huge issue for us gamers. Please tell me.
I mean, games take up a lot of bandwidth.
No, they don't.
Any game that actually requires information
Ooh, wow. 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 Oh, I'm not running this on my cell phone, am I? I'm running this on a home internet connection.
to be sent real time over the internet takes
StarCraft 2. Home internet connection.
a lot of space on that spectrum. And
It doesn't use fucking Spectrum, you dumb ass. You're giving me two examples of things that run on PCs, and they're using home internet connections. They're either using a fiber line, which, oh, I'm running out of bandwidth. Throw another fucking fiber line to that connection. I mean, how the fuck? Oh, god damn. This guy is so stupid, people. This guy is comparing cell phone data to home internet data. It's two separate things. It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's not a comparison that can be made. If you're going to tell us that the world is going to end because we're running out of spectrum, give me examples solely on things that use our spectrum. Because the line that goes from my fucking house to the internet doesn't use up this the spectrum shit. It doesn't use up any of this precious limited shit that this guy's talking about. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist in that particular use case. So you're telling me, wow, our spectrum's running out, and then you show an example of a fucking game. You're a dumb ass.
it requires a consistent, high quality connection to be even
Okay, see, this is the thing that pisses me off, guys. I'm sorry, but why is this guy, he's like bipolar. He's switching between two complete fucking different things and trying to say it's one and the same of a problem. That, my friends, is a network switch. What the fuck does it have to do with cellular data? This spectrum is, oh my god, the spectrum is so limited. We don't have enough of it. But yeah, I'm going to show you examples of things that have nothing to do with this fucking spectrum.
marginally playable. This spectrum crunch and the accompanying rise in bandwidth costs
Satellite dishes don't particularly use that spectrum, by the way.
severely limits what we can do with multiplayer mobile gaming. If you were
Okay, now you're saying mobile gaming. Whoa, what the fuck? You're giving us examples of WoW, StarCraft 2, and now you're talking about mobile gaming.
ever hoping to see a multiplayer first-person shooter for your tablet or a full 3D MMO for your phone, heck, if you were even hoping
Why the fuck would we want that when what the fuck's it called? Damn. The ping times are just so retarded and ridiculous. The ping times basically determine how quickly from the point that you make an action and when the server will react to that particular action. That's called latency. The problem with many mobile games, and this is why we don't have these particular games that this guy gave us examples of, is because based on current cellular data latency, it's ridiculously high. You're talking about a cell phone device that is traveling signals across miles between a cell point connection and your phone. you're opening up the doors for so much latency that no one would want to play these games online at all through cellular data.
To keep playing draw something. This limitation of available air bandwidth will pretty much put a stop to that. But that's not all. I mean, games themselves.
No, it's not. With LTE, they have solved this. For those idiots out there, LTE actually uses even more efficient use of current available spectrum. Let me break it down to this for you guys. We still are currently carrying 3 different type of technologies. You're carrying 2G, 3G, and 4G LTE. 2G is more than 5 years old for like the iPhone. The original iPhone operated only on that particular technology. 2G has been around for a very, very long time, since actually the early 2000s, and it's a technology that isn't as efficient as LTE. Therefore, cell phone companies have already decided to start terminating 2G towers and replacing the spectrum that particular phones use and repurposing it for 3G and 4G. They have solved the spectrum crunch, you dumbass.
Tend to be some of the largest apps out there. Even just the data transfer involved in a.
Okay, now you're comparing apps to games on cell phones. There's another one that this guy didn't figure out. When the iPhone first opened up its App Store, they already set a cap of 25 megabytes. Later on, they eventually upped the cap to 50 megabytes that you can download. But again, with limited bandwidth on 2G technology, or 3G technology, why the fuck would you want to sit there and download a 50 megabyte game? It would take forever. With 4G LTE, you can download it faster than your home internet connection sometimes.
Acquiring games will hamper how we do digital distribution to these devices in the future, rather than the current trend towards you
No, it's not going to hamper shit. You're retarded.
simply being able to download an app wherever you are and play with your friends. We're going to see an increasing move to force you to be on a wireless LAN if you want to get games. And then, of course, there's cloud gaming. While it may not be a big thing right now, since...
Okay, so this is where I really just cannot understand this guy. He's jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, using one example to help the other one to talk about the spectrum crunch. And now he just throws a fucking curveball. Now he's talking about something else. Now he's going back on his original argument. He is saying to everybody, oh, well now you're going to be forced to use your home wireless internet connection. The problem is, that's what we all use already.
The kinks are still being worked out of the technology. There's massive future potential in services like OnLive. The promise that out in a warehouse somewhere, they've got a ton of amazing gaming rigs, and all you have to do is subscribe to their service, and their computers will do all the processing for your games. All your computer will have to do is transmit your controller inputs, and they'll stream you a video of the game you're playing to whatever display you're looking at. Theoretically, with a good enough internet connection, this experience will one day be indistinguishable from actually playing the game locally. And while many of you probably have a hefty gaming PC and can run everything just fine on your own...
No, it will never be the same, guys. As I said, going back to latency, even with today's online games, the servers have to calculate and actually estimate a lot of actions that are made and a lot of actions that happen. Look in, for example, hit detection on Black Ops when it first came out. A lot of people bitched about it because the server wasn't accurately estimating where the gunshot came from and where it should have hit. It was calculating that, okay, this player is moving, this many feet per second. The bullet is traveling at this particular velocity and all this stuff. It gets the math wrong a lot of times, and that's when you throw your controller at the screen and get into a fit and rage over how bullshit that cheap death was. So how the fuck is this going to make it even better?
Rig. This type of technology means that so long as the machine you're on is capable of running video, it could run literally any game ever made. Get a Bluetooth controller and you should be able to play a Crysis game on your iPad with the settings cranked all the way up. Grab that same controller and you can play Portal 2 on your phone on the bus ride to work. But of course, all that is dependent on having access to enough high-quality internet access via our cellular system, which means it's never going to happen unless we find an answer to this spectrum crunch problem. Right now, both the administration and the FCC are trying to find answers, but it's a pretty tough problem. Just recently, they passed a stopgap bill allowing cell carriers to broadcast data on the staticky space between television channels. They're also planning on taking back a lot of the bandwidth allocated to government agencies like NASA, and trying to get the various companies who have bought rights but are just sitting on them to auction them off. But the real problem here is that most of the really good spectrum is currently taken up by broadcast television. I feel really old saying this, but you remember when you used to have an antenna attached to your TV? Well, stations like ABC, NBC, and Fox are still broadcasting this way because they licensed the rights to those airwaves years ago from the government. And while the number of antenna users has dramatically decreased in the last 2 decades, the amount of spectrum taken by it hasn't really. And of course, right now,
That's been passed for a very long time. That's what happened when we switched from analog to digital.
TV companies have no real reason to let the spectrum go. Heck, it's only getting more valuable. So even if their customers aren't watching via antenna anymore, there's really no reason for them to let it go. There's been lobbying on both sides of the issue, from both the cable companies and the cell phone companies. But right now it looks like, unless the TV airspace gets freed up, we're going to hit the spectrum crunch long before we develop the technology to permanently solve this problem. Now this is the part where I would usually explain what we can do about this, but unfortunately I haven't got any grand solutions to say.
Whoa, whoa, buddy, I have to stop you here again. You're wrong. They didn't. They don't have this anymore. They were forced to give up this bandwidth back in, what was it? I think it was like 2008 or 2009. Don't you remember the great digital television transition that pissed so many people off? Oh, you all have to buy a converter box. That's exactly what happened. The companies no longer have the amount of spectrum that they used to have. The government actually has it right now, and they've actually auctioned it off to Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. So what you're telling us isn't new news. It happened a long time ago.
Suggest. For the time being, I think this is one of those esoteric and remote problems that's best solved by a broader sense of understanding. All too often, really important matters like this are quietly decided upon by a small group of interested parties, when I think the best solutions only come if we're all involved in the conversation. So for now, just think on it and discuss it with others when the opportunity pops up. When somebody complains about their slow network or the rising price of their cell phone bill, maybe tell them about the bigger root problem. And keep an ear out. This is going to come up more and more in American politics over the next few years, but it's going to come up so quietly that even a few extra voices will be able to make a huge difference. Hopefully, with some thought, we can sort this out and avoid seeing access to wireless broadband internet being restricted. I think we can all agree that would be a major step backwards. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
I really didn't enjoy this presentation, guys. Let me just tell you this. This guy doesn't know anything about technology. He's just a so-called gamer who thinks, just because I'm a gamer, I automatically know about technology. No. This guy doesn't know shit about what he was talking about. It was a very poorly researched issue, and he didn't give any sources as to where he got the information from. He's using charts that contradict each other. He's comparing two different technologies and saying it's one and the same of a problem. This is not the issue, guys. I think this guy is a moron. I think that this guy really, I don't know how he has subscribers, but I do recall watching one of his earlier videos about GameStop saying how they're okay to do what they do. I'm going to sign off at this point. I want you guys to take into consideration what I said. It's a non-issue, guys. It's propaganda, for one. Two, it's not going to affect anybody who's gaming at home because your home internet connection is not adversely affected by this so-called spectrum crunch. Take care, guys. Look out for future content.